secrets get too big, killing it may be the cost of doing business.
It would give AT&T control of the Warner Brothers film studio. It produced Ben Affleck's new film, The Accountant, which has topped the US box office. It would also give it control of TV channels HBO and CNN.
It's worth understanding this deal against a broader trend in the industry where tech and telecom giants are aggressively seeking to control the content they supply. This deal would be a very significant step in that trend. It would create a media giant. It would be a historic deal, and it would really dramatically reshape the landscape for these industries.
The proposed deal is part of a trend. 5 years ago, telecoms giant Comcast and NBC Universal merged. And last year, AT&T bought DirecTV, creating the largest pay-TV company in the United States. The AT&T Time Warner deal will need approval from regulators, which could take more than a year. One issue they'll consider is whether the merger would reduce competition, leading to higher prices and fewer choices for consumers. Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump says he'll block the deal if elected.
As an example of the power structure I'm fighting, AT&T is buying Time Warner and thus CNN, a deal we will not approve in my administration because it's too much concentration of power in the hands of too few.
Members of the Senate say the deal raises questions about the consolidation of the media market in the United States. They want more information about how it will affect consumers. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
13 people are dead after a collision involving a coach full of passengers in the western United States. The bus hit the rear of a truck on a freeway close to the southern Californian city of Palm Springs on Sunday morning. The other 31 people on board are all being treated in hospital for their injuries, some of them serious. International aid organizations are concerned for the safety of more than 100,000 Muslim Rohingya in western Myanmar. Rakhine State has been under military lockdown since 9 policemen were killed in an attack almost 2 weeks ago. Step Varson has more from the state capital, Sittwe.
2 weeks since the attacks on border police, a military crackdown is still ongoing in northern Rakhine State. The area, including the towns of Mang Dao and Butidang, are still off limits to international aid organizations and the international media. Reports about extrajudicial killings and people randomly arrested can't be independently verified. Since the latest violence in 2012, more than 120,000 Rohingya are still forced to live in camps under very dire circumstances. The government of Aung San Suu Kyi has yet to recognize the Rohingya as citizens of Myanmar. According to local Rohingya leaders, the feelings of frustration, discrimination and rights abuses are one of the main reasons behind the October 9 attacks. But they deny reports by the government that an extremist group trained abroad is behind the attacks. With aid still refused to go into the area, sources in Mang Dao are increasingly concerned about the humanitarian situation of more than 100,000 Rohingya depending on food and medical care.
Opium production in Afghanistan is up 43% this year, according to a new study released by the United Nations. The rise is being blamed on poor security, a lack of finance, and a sharp rise in drug addiction. Afghanistan is the world's main source of heroin. The Afghan government has a policy of eradicating poppy crops, but officials are often accused of turning a blind eye to opium growing in government-controlled areas. Now, the Ivory Coast is the world's largest exporter of cocoa. This season's production is forecast to be 1.6 billion tons of beans. But there are concerns that a repeat of last season's severe dry winds will destroy crops and hit profits. That's forcing some farmers to abandon operations and turn to a more risky enterprise in the hope of striking gold. Nicholas Hack reports.
They call this chocolate country. On each side of the road are cocoa plantations. But take a closer look and you see this. Cocoa farmers destroying their farmland. After digging these holes, Godin surveys the ground in search of gold. Barely visible, so little, yet worth so much. And so he digs some more, hoping to find even more gold. It's addictive, and it's devastating the forest.
I want to buy a nice house, get married, and have a nice car. All of these dreams I can make happen. It's all right here in the ground.
They use mercury to extract the gold. The toxic chemical is poisoning them and polluting the ground. Yet the owner of the land says he doesn't mind. His cocoa plantation isn't producing like it used to.
There is not enough rain. The seasons have completely changed. Harvesting is just too difficult. It's not worth it for me.
The price of gold continues to rise on the global market. Foreign buyers come directly to villagers to buy the precious metal. And this harvesting season has been an exceptionally bad one for the world's biggest producer of cocoa. This is an orchard that farmers want to tear down to dig for gold. They say that farming for cocoa is labor intensive. It involves picking tons of these cocoa pods, splitting them open, drying out the seeds for a month, and then selling them to the state for just $2 a kilo. The state then sells it to foreign multinationals. Axel Emmanuel makes high-end Ivorian chocolate. He says that this is where the money is, and that other cocoa growers should become chocolate makers themselves, saving their plantations and making a better profit.
Farmers here only know how to pick, to dry, and to sell their cocoa. They don't know how to do anything else with it. We want to help them learn to transform it so they can earn 10 times as much.
The world's appetite for chocolate continues to grow. The market is estimated to be worth more than $130 billion by 2019. But for now, cocoa farmers are hungry for gold. Nicholas Hawke, Al Jazeera, Bouré, Ivory Coast.
Well, there's more on everything we're covering right here, aljazeera.com. Let's update you on the top stories now. Turkey's Prime Minister has confirmed his troops are now involved in the offensive to push ISIL out of the Iraqi city of Mosul. Binali Yildirim says Turkish soldiers are supporting the assault after Peshmerga forces requested their help. The Kurdish fighters are trying to take back the nearby town of Bashika, which the armed group has controlled for more than 2 years. Meanwhile, Iraqi forces have continued their advance towards Mosul, taking control of the center of the nearby city of Hamdaniya. So far, more than 4,000 people have fled from towns and villages around Mosul. And as the pressure piles on ISIL around Mosul, the group has launched what appears to be a diversionary attack about 700 kilometers southwest in Rutba. Iraqi military sources have told Al Jazeera ISIL killed dozens of security personnel, as well as 20 members of a local Sunni tribe. Well, moving to our other top stories this hour, there have been more skirmishes between protesters and police at the camp known as the Jungle in France's northern port of Calais. Now, this comes the night before the camp will be dismantled by French authorities. Around 6,000 refugees will be relocated to reception centres.
The prefect of the Pas de Calais said she'd been talking to community leaders in the Jungle camp, and they had assured her that it would be a peaceful process, a peaceful evacuation. But tonight's events are telling a different story.
The Italian Coast Guard says 5,700 refugees were rescued from the Mediterranean Sea between Friday and Saturday. Some 600 of them have now arrived in Catania on the Italian island of Sicily. 14 bodies were also recovered, including a 25-year-old pregnant woman.